Rachel Zegler is no stranger to the spotlight. But what happens when that spotlight becomes a magnifying glass, distorting your every word, movement, and even your identity into something unrecognizable? That's the emotional journey she's finally opening up about, and her story is far more raw, human, and moving than the clickbait headlines and trending hashtags ever allowed her to be. In a candid, unfiltered, and incredibly personal interview with ID magazine, Zegler, who once made history as one of the youngest and most promising breakout stars of the decade, is now peeling back the curtain on the reality of being young, vulnerable, and mentally overwhelmed in an industry that so often forgets that actors are human too. At just 24 years old, Rachel Zegler has already lived through what some people wouldn't wish on their worst enemy: a whirlwind of fame, online harassment, cultural backlash, and deeply invasive criticism, all tied to one of the most iconic characters in cinematic history, Snow White. Her casting in the live-action Disney remake was meant to be a celebration of diversity, progress, and modern storytelling. Instead, it became a battlefield for culture wars, a lightning rod for controversy, and a personal nightmare she never saw coming. In the months leading up to the film's release, Zegler was hit with a storm of backlash that no young performer, no person, period, is ever truly prepared for. Social media turned against her. Headlines painted her as ungrateful, arrogant, even anti-fairy tale. People picked apart her interviews, accusing her of hating the original Snow White simply because she expressed a modern take on female empowerment. And while Disney has often weathered criticism, this time it wasn't the studio taking the heat. It was Rachel herself. Her words were taken out of context, used as ammunition in viral outrage videos. Her face became a meme, and her identity, as a Colombian-Polish woman playing a historically white princess, was weaponized by people looking to spark culture war debates. But what was lost in all of this wasn't just the nuance of Zegler's perspective. It was the emotional cost of what she endured. And in this latest interview, she doesn't hold back about how it affected her. She tells ID magazine that the most important support in her life during that time didn't come from Hollywood. It didn't come from PR reps or media training. It came from her psychiatrist. Yes, a psychiatrist, a therapist, a mental health professional. Not a guru, not a TikTok influencer selling affirmations, but a trained clinical doctor who helped her understand that what she was going through was, in fact, not normal. My psychiatrist has seen me through all of it, she said, unfiltered. She recalls one specific moment that stuck with her. A turning point, really, when her psychiatrist told her bluntly, "What you're going through isn't normal." And that simple sentence changed everything for her. Because so often, when you're in the middle of chaos, when you're being dragged online, misquoted, hated for things beyond your control, it starts to feel like maybe you deserve it. Maybe it really is your fault. Maybe if you had just said things differently, smiled a little more, been a little quieter, the world wouldn't hate you. But what Zegler's therapist reminded her is that this kind of toxic scrutiny, this relentless judgment of a young woman in the public eye, is not natural. It's not okay. And it certainly isn't something she had to accept as part of the job. So she made a choice. A brave one. She chose to start medication for anxiety. And that's where her healing truly began. Zegler explained that she wasn't functioning. Not emotionally, not mentally, not creatively. And more importantly, she was tired of pretending she was. The decision to start medication wasn't about hiding or numbing herself. It was about regaining her ability to live, to breathe, to move through the world without the crushing weight of fear and overthinking. It was truly a game changer, she said, because I just wasn't functioning. And I wanted to function in a way that made me feel confident in the way I was moving through the world. It's a sentiment so many young people today can relate to, especially those who've dealt with public bullying, social media anxiety, or the pressure to maintain a perfect image. What Rachel Zegler is doing by being this honest isn't just brave, it's important. She's taking a sledgehammer to the stigma around therapy and medication. She's showing that strength doesn't always look like stoicism. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a therapist's office and hearing the words, "You're not okay." And that's okay. But what makes Zegler's story resonate even deeper is the mindset she chose to adopt after her healing began. Instead of falling into bitterness, resentment, or victimhood, which would have been entirely understandable, she chose something radical: optimism. She chose to not allow her identity to be shaped by the backlash or the media firestorms, or even the cruelest of comments. "I think a victim mindset is a choice," she told ID, "and I don't choose it. I also don't choose nastiness in the face of it. I don't choose negativity in the face of it." That's not a statement of privilege. That's a declaration of resilience. Because after what she went through, the public takedowns, the racial harassment, the trauma of watching strangers dissect your personality for likes and views, choosing kindness is not easy. Choosing light is not instinctive. But for Zegler, it's a conscious practice. It's not denial. It's defiance. A refusal to become what the world tried to turn her into. "I choose positivity and light and happiness," she continued. "And I do believe at times, happiness is absolutely a choice. And every day I wake up and I think I'm very lucky to live the life I live." And now she's doing just that. Living it. She's currently starring in the bold West End revival of Evita, playing the legendary Eva Peron. A complex, controversial, powerful woman who, like Zegler, understood what it meant to be both idolized and demonized. Under the direction of Jamie Lloyd, this production of Evita is unapologetically radical, reimagining the classic story in a way that matches Zegler's own voice. Modern, sharp, and fiercely authentic. The performance isn't traditional. At one point, Zegler even walks out of the theater with her performance live-streamed to the audience from outside. And yet, critics have called it electrifying. Audiences are connecting with it. But once again, online commentators found something to complain about, manufacturing outrage over a performance they haven't even seen. And Zegler's co-star, James Olivas, wasn't afraid to speak up about it. He called the online criticism manufactured outrage, pointing out that not a single person who's actually seen the show has left with anything but admiration. He defended Zegler as a performer and a person, someone who is easy to target simply because she is young, female, and a person of color. And perhaps that's the deeper issue at play here. So much of the backlash Zegler has received isn't really about Snow White. It's about discomfort with change, about deeply ingrained biases and resistance to seeing beloved roles reimagined through a more inclusive lens. But instead of shrinking herself to fit the mold, Zegler is expanding the mold entirely. She's taking on complex roles. She's speaking openly about therapy. She's showing us that you can be in pain and still have purpose. That you can fall apart and still come back stronger. Because what Rachel Zegler represents isn't just another actress on a press tour. She represents a generation of young women who are done apologizing for taking up space, who are done pretending they're okay when they're not, who are choosing light not because it's easy, but because they know the dark too well. So the next time you see a headline about Rachel Zegler, don't just skim it. Don't just assume you know the full story, because behind that headline is a young woman who nearly broke. And instead of hiding the cracks, she's showing them with pride. Not as flaws, but as proof that she's still standing,